Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and today we're going to take a look at a really unusual variation on the Finnish LS-26 light machine gun. This is the drum magazine-fed version of the gun, named, depending on the exact variation, it's either the LS-26/31, the 26/32, or just straight up the LS-32. So, where did this come from? Well, the LS-26 in its original form is this guy. Basically the exact same gun, but it's fed by a 20-round box magazine, chambered for 7.62 by 54 rimmed. It's a recoil-operated light machine gun. It's developed by Aimo Lahti and also a guy named Selleranta. Aimo Lahti is probably the most famous Finnish gun designer. He designed the Suomi submachine guns. And this was tested, iterated, and ultimately adopted by the Finnish Army as the LS-26, Lahti Selleranta 1926. Now, it was manufactured by VKT, which was the Finnish State Rifle Factory, and just because it was adopted didn't mean that they stopped working on it. They kept experimenting with different modified variations on the gun. In August of 1930, they specifically tested a drum-fed model intended for aircraft use. Now, that particular pattern didn't go anywhere, but Lahti continued to work on a drum magazine adapter for the gun because he was interested in getting a higher capacity in it. This would come to a head in 1931 when VKT manufactured a test run of 50 guns. They were serialized 4,000 to 4,050, so I guess actually it's 51 guns. And those were put into some testing. They did a little bit of refinement based on that and developed the LS-32 pattern. Now, this was intended to be a gun for export sales. The Finnish Army, the Finnish government, wasn't interested in it specifically. Like, they were happy with the box magazines. Frankly, these drum magazines are expensive, complicated. It's hard to carry a lot of drum magazines. Like, box magazines are easy. It's a lot easier. This holds 75 rounds here. It's easier to carry 4 of the basic box magazines. Like, you can stick 4 of these little guys in a pouch a lot more easily than you can carry around these things. They're just bulky and awkward. So the Finnish military isn't interested, and instead the gun is offered for export. Now, we'll talk about who was interested in it and who actually bought some of these, but first, let me show you specifically what they did to adapt the gun to drums. Since you're here watching a video about Finnish small arms, you might be interested in my new upcoming book, Forged in Snow, Finnish Small Arms, 1917 through 2025, currently available for pre-order on Kickstarter. We have a whole bunch of pledge levels, a whole bunch of stretch goals, a tremendous amount of really cool material in the book, and you should definitely check it out. Forged in Snow, the link to the Kickstarter is in the description text below. All right, so this is a standard LS-26 with its 20-round box magazine. This is an LS-26/32. The differences between 26/31, 26/32, and LS-32 are extremely subtle, in fact, essentially invisible from the outside other than the markings. This is the drum magazine that Lahti developed for this gun. Now, unfortunately, I have to admit, this is not specifically the exact correct magazine, because after these guns were developed, the drum would go on to be used in a series of further VKT guns, the L-33 and L-33/39. These were essentially dedicated anti-aircraft guns that used the drum magazines. So this is from one of the later patterns of gun. It's the same magazine body. It has this ratcheting locking system, which the original 26/31 magazines didn't have. It also has this handle and release mechanism, which the original magazines didn't have. But the basic attachment method is the same, and the magazine body is the same. So this will actually attach to our 26/32 gun. So what they did was cut out this section of the receiver so that a drum magazine with a very short little feed tower here could sit directly up right there. The center spindle of the center hole in the magazine fits over this spindle. We have a magazine catch right here that's going to lock on to the same place that the regular box magazine does. So this sits right there and locks in place just like that. And you can see how the magazine fits this contour nicely right there. Now, the other neat thing about this conversion is that it did not mean that you only could use drum magazines. You also retained the ability to use box magazines. However, the front catch for the box magazine was gone. You can't just attach a box magazine in here because there's nothing left up there. What they did was make an adapter device right here. This latches over that magazine spindle, slides in place, and essentially reintroduces this front section of the magazine. So the front lip there will now support your box magazine, and it'll lock in place just like that. And if you decide you want to go back to drums, you can remove the magazine, push this plunger in, like so, and just slide this right off the bottom of the gun. Now, I've already done a complete video on the standard LS-26, so if you want to know more about the internals, check out that video. I'll link to it in the description text below. For now, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the different markings that appear on these drum-fed versions. All right, here are all three different variations. So we have the LS model 26/31, we have the 26/32, and we have the LS-32. Now, this serial number is a little bit of a mystery to me. I'm not sure where that one exactly comes from. The initial trials batch of these guns was serialized from 4000 to 4050, and I've seen a couple examples of those. They're really around. A few of those, by the way, are also marked HPK on the top, and that means that they are training rifles. The 26/32 is our second pattern. Production of the LS-32 began at 5,000, so this is actually the first production example. I'm not sure what the distinction is between LS-32 and 26/32, but these are the three different types of marking that you will find on these guns. So VKT offered the LS-32 for international sale, and it was offered in essentially any modern rifle caliber that you might like to have it in. So 6.5mm Swede, 7mm Mauser, 303 British, 8mm Mauser, take your pick. VKT was quite confident they could adapt the drum and the gun to use whatever cartridge you wanted. There were two countries that expressed interest and purchased some sample guns. Those were Lithuania and China. And I'm not sure, this is kind of during major warlord era period in China, 1937. And I don't know exactly which clique or group or specific warlord was the one responsible for this order, but Lithuania ended up not placing any orders. The Chinese ordered 30,000 of these guns. That's a fantastic order for VKT. They start production, shipments begin in 1937, but ultimately only about 1,200 of them are delivered before the Japanese exert some diplomatic pressure on Finland and get them to cease deliveries to China. Of course, this is right when Japan is stepping up its military operations in China. They don't want other people shipping guns to their foes in China, so they convinced the Finns to stop deliveries. And I'm not sure exactly what leverage they were able to use to do that, but ultimately only 1,200 were actually sent out. And that constitutes the only actual production batch of LS-32 guns that was ever made. Now, that doesn't mean that all of the guns actually went to China, because in 1939, when the Winter War broke out, there were 30 of these guns at VKT that presumably they were sample guns, test guns, you know, leftovers that they produced out of the remaining spare parts they had, that sort of thing. Those guns were all sent to the Finnish army, where they were used with the drum magazines essentially until all of the drum magazines broke or were damaged or destroyed or lost. When they ran out of drum magazines, the guns were permanently converted back to use box magazines, and then remained in service as standard LS-26 light machine guns. And this is actually one of those. This is the very first LS-32 manufactured. It's serial number 5000, and it's Finnish Army stamped, which means this is one of the ones that the Finns used in the Winter War. So that is a very cool example to have here. In fact, both of these, all the guns you've seen here, are extremely rare because there's only this one tiny order made from China, and not many actually came back from China to go anywhere else. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.